We're back again. My 11 Circle presents Crickbuzz Live. It's a brand new series, 3 ODIs between India and South Africa. And at the start of any contest between two heavyweights, you normally would turn around and say the gloves are off. In this case, for obvious reasons, we'll turn around and say the masks are off and we are ready to play. Though there's another factor, a bit of weather around, lots of rain in Dharamshala, which means we don't have a toss to report yet, because all the rain that they got last night, and it was pretty much raining till about 4 o'clock in the morning in Dharamshala, and that's meant that the outfield is slightly damp, so we haven't got the flip of the coin quite yet. But so much to talk about in the studio. I've got Joy Bhattacharya and Zahir Khan. Masks are obviously off, so everyone can hear us better, but that is going to be the talking point. Sporting events around the world.
I think not just sporting events around the world, all events around the world. And it's an interesting one because you see the last time something like this hit in this scale was in 1919, which is almost just about 100 years back. And that time, I mean, because of, there was no social media, there was no understanding of these things, it hit India particularly hard. So I think that's the reason why there's a lot of thought about how do you control it. And of course, WhatsApp University is going at full strength right now. Everyone is a postgraduate from WhatsApp University. So it's...
Yeah, Zahir, that really is going to be the talking point. Which one is spreading faster, the panic or the virus itself?
Well, I hope the panic is justified. I think the kind of measures which has taken certainly shows that it's something which has to be looked at very seriously. I think the fact that it's spreading so fast is a concern for everyone, and the precautionary measures has to be taken. So every individual has to be educated on that, what kind of measures one should take, and everyone I think is very serious in terms of taking the required measures to make sure that they are safe and sound.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that. I might have made a comment like the masks are off, but you can see in the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, all the memes that were sort of almost poking fun at what's happening around the world have changed to serious advisories from the government, from medical institutions, and people are starting to take this more and more seriously as far as all of us are concerned, with 3 ODIs to come. And then, of course, the big IPL looming round the corner. So many question marks about, well, not just about players actually stepping onto the field, but remember, the IPL means you've got so many players from around the world who are coming in. Now, this is the advisory. Let's remind you what they have said in terms of travel to India about all existing visas except diplomatic, official, UN, international organizations. Employment and project visas stand suspended till the 15th of April 2020, and this comes into effect from the 13th of March as at the port of departure. And for anyone who has been to a list of about 6 or 7 countries, incoming travelers will be quarantined for a minimum of 14 days on their arrival into India. Yes, I can tell you, I came in, it was 72 hours ago. I came in from Bangladesh. I had to actually prove that I had not been to any of those countries. So I was only given a single point screening rather than a quarantine. But Joy, I'm going to come to you first in terms of this advisory. Does a work/employment visa cover IPL players coming in?
No, it does. It does. And I know there have been a lot of talk about it, but let me just take you back to the rules as it started, and it was there definitely till at least 2014 or 15, and I just confirmed it's the same. If you know that most international players, even when they play in India, get PAN cards because their income is taxed in India and they pay a certain amount of withholding tax in India. Now, what happens is the moment a player is taken an auction or signed up, especially, so let me go through the process for players first. Once a player is signed up, 2 letters go from here. So assume, say, 15, 16 Australian players are coming to India. So the Indian High Commission Australia will get 1 letter from the IPL stating that the following players have been signed up for the IPL and please request them to make their work visa. Then a specific letter will also go from the franchise saying that this player with this fee has been signed for so and so, we want him. So 2 letters actually go. And therefore, all IPL visas are employment visas. And similarly, when the letter has to go for, say, a staff which is not hired by the IPL, then the letter goes only from the club, the specific franchise saying that this is there, and IPL might giving a backup letter saying that to certify so and so is also a member of the coaching staff. So all these people have what you call work/employment visas. Technically, there should be no problem getting them in. What does happen though, a lot of it is that people bring their families, they come out here because remember IPL is a long tournament. All those are gone. The tourist visas are gone. So I don't think it's going to be a problem for players to come in or staff to come in. It may be a huge problem for any of their immediate family to come in, wives, girlfriends, wags. That's out.
Yeah, well, that's something that we sort of expected would happen. I don't want to poke any fun at players who people consider tourists when they come in and don't end up playing for the franchises. So you're not going to separate them in terms of that. It's purely the players who come in will be employed. Gentlemen, here I'm actually starting to get used to you coming back into Crickbuzz live attire, because in the last week or so we've been seeing the old Zach back in action with ball in hand. Are you getting used to being back in this chair?
Well,
Scout?
it was great fun going out there and playing, and it's always a pleasure to come here and watch the game and talk about it. So I think I'm balancing it all. Be it playing, be it watching it, talking about it, or be it going out there and giving the expert advice with regard to coaching. So I think I'm fully soaked in cricket, which is possibly the best position or situation you can be.
But coming back to what we've been talking about right now, while you were playing, obviously so many international players playing with you, was there any advisory put to you other than to go easy on the batsman?
Well, I think this is the biggest. I've never experienced something like this in my playing days, for sure. Something which one must take it seriously at the moment. The kind of situation we are in right now. As a cricketer, as a viewer, as a fan, you got to stay optimistic about the whole situation. You would want cricket to go on, for sure. You don't want to get into a scenario where actually cricket is not being played. So you have to find a way, keeping the seriousness of the situation in mind, because that's what everyone would want. Any cricketer would want to go out there and continue with the schedule which is designed right now. And for viewers also, they've been eagerly waiting for the biggest cricket carnival. And if that is going to be hampered in some way, I think it will be not a great news for all the fans and the cricketers and the viewers. So I'm very optimistic about it. I hope the situation gets better, and by the time the tournament starts, everything is in place, and everyone can have the routine of things, which we've been seeing every year.
Well, we're glad to see you on the field, but we're also good to have. It's also good to have you back here in your second role. But well, the news isn't that great. We're optimistic about obviously what's happening in future with the IPL, etc. But not great news, at least for today in Dharamshala. It rained last night, as I mentioned, till the wee hours of the morning. Then it stopped. A bit of sun came out, but the toss was delayed because of a wet outfield. And now again, the update is that the players have scurried off, the stumps have been put down, and the covers are coming back on because there is some forecast of possible thunder showers later. A quick reminder of the matches that lie ahead. The first one here in Dharamshala, the second at the beautiful Ekana Sports City in Lucknow. Huge stadium there, and it's always good to see big venues that have been constructed get some cricket. They'll get one on Sunday, and then another huge venue, the Eden Gardens in Kolkata on the 18th to wrap up these 3 ODIs. But the players too have been very much in the focus of things. From the Indian side, it was Bhuvaneshwar Kumar out there who not only talked about the coronavirus and everything else going on, but there was an interesting point he made about how the bowlers shine the ball. Take a listen.
Look, I cannot say, it's going to be dangerous or no, because it just started in India. But for that, we are taking every precautions we can take. We have a team doctor with us. He's giving us instruction what's do's and don'ts. So we are taking every precaution we can. So hope it won't go much further. Look, the few do's and don'ts which he asks us to do. So I mean, simple things that keep your hygiene, keep washing your hands, and when it comes to going closer to the fans and all those things, see, this thing we cannot avoid because they love us, they support us. But yes, in this meantime, we can try to be not say no to them, but we can choose not to go much closer or going into the public, so we can avoid as much as we can. And other things that keep wearing mask and all those gloves, all those things. So that's the thing. नहीं, इस बारे में सोचा है, मैं अभी नहीं बोल सकता। अगर हमने स्लेवा यूज़ नहीं किया, बॉल शाइन कैसे करेंगे, फिर मार पड़ेगी, आप लोग बोलोगे बॉलिंग अच्छी नहीं करते हो, तो पता नहीं उसके लिए। बट हाँ, आप जो बोला वो एक वैलिड पॉइंट है। तो लेट्स सी, डॉक्टर है हमारे साथ, आज मीटिंग होगी, वो लोग जो भी हम लोग को इंस्ट्रक्शन देंगे या जो भी बेस्ट चीज़ कर सकते हैं, साथ में स्लाइवा यूज़ करने के साथ हम इग्नोर कर सकते हैं। तो आई मीन जैसे मैंने बोला कि डॉक्टर के ऊपर है, मीटिंग में वो हमें जो भी इंस्ट्रक्शन देंगे या जो भी चीज़ें होंगी हम वो फॉलो करेंगे.
I'm glad that Bhuvaneshwar Kumar had a sense of humor there. Of course, you're talking about masks and gloves, which are really technically a part of cricketing equipment. But interesting point he makes on the saliva, because no matter what the rumors that are being spread around, the one thing that is true is that spit/saliva is the way that the virus does get spread, if anything. So, and that is also a way that you shine the ball.
And it's a very interesting question. You know, one must give credit to the guy who actually thought about it and thought it through, because when you are playing in a packed stadium and a ball has gone out to a boundary or a six, you know, the ball actually has touched people's hands, right? You know, it's gone in the crowd and then came back into the field. So that certainly creates a question mark on that kind of a situation. If you're going to be using saliva to shine the ball, you know, so there is a very high chance of something transmitting through that. And you know, and not only one individual is putting the saliva on the ball. It's actually all the playing 11 usually is involved in that. So I think, you know, that has to be addressed. You know, there is no doubt about it. And it's the question is certainly very interesting question, and a certain plan has to be in place. You know, because for Bhuvaneshwar, I think keep that sense of humor is good, because in testing times, you got to have that light side also going. You know, you can't get too serious about things, but at the same time there has to be a plan for sure, because you know, health comes first.
What is the option to that? Jelly
No,
bean?
no, that's what I'm thinking.
It has to go through the whole process, right? So I think the process needs to be altered.
I think the problem is not the saliva so much, because see, look at it as saliva. If it was a closed system, there are 11 players, all 11, I know you're healthy, these 11 are healthy, they've certified. These 11 touching the ball and doing saliva is not a problem, because it stays among these 11. As long as we know that we can ensure the health of these 11, we have no problem. The problem is with or without saliva. Forget whether I put saliva or not. The ball going out of the ground and coming back. That's your problem. So every time the ball goes into the stands, okay, that's whenever a ball comes back, I cannot guarantee where in the stands it will go. Among those 30,000 spectators, which of them has the virus in a... So that's where the problem is. So it's not about saliva. More than that, it's about the fact that every time a ball goes out, you probably have a situation where you say, okay, 10th of a ball has gone out, this is what the ball looks like, I'll give you a new ball for that.
But Joy, my counter to that is, even if you're looking at playing under closed doors, and we've seen the Serie A football matches being played like that, the Manchester City Arsenal, of course, it's been postponed, but there was talk of that possibly happening. The coaches were coming around saying that, well, is that good for the game? Purely from a sporting point of view. But assuming that you do have no spectators out there, you'll still have about 200 people in the stands with support staff, ground staff, etc., etc. Is that controllable?
You will have to control those. And see, given the amount of money, it's not controllable for a small tournament. For the IPL, it's controllable, because they'll say, okay, here it is ground. So if I'm playing in Bengal, CAB is in charge of ground staff, this. I am in charge of outside players, this. This is the routine they're going to follow. This is the screening they're going to do. They can, that much number of players they can put and do it. The big problem, as I said, is that the moment if I open up the stadiums, those are the problems that you come when it's there early. And the point about, see, anything like it is, if you see coronavirus, they call it a pandemic. What's the difference between a pandemic and an epidemic? An epidemic happens in a country. So suddenly there's an epidemic of, say, measles or, of tuberculosis. Not tuberculosis, not so much air-driven, but measles, the eye infections, you get epidemics. But a pandemic is when it goes around the globe. So now WHO has called this a pandemic. So that means about 60-70% of the planet it's gone to. Okay. So the only way you can stop it is basically, if you arrest the growth now, if you stop it now, then suddenly it will drop off. The big problem is that you don't need to do that for the next 10 years. You can't turn around and say, okay, no cricket, you're going to stop it. They're saying that if you stop it for 15 days, for a month, till April 15th, if you stop it, the growth is stopped. It can't move forward. Then suddenly I've really inhibited the virus. Also, they're saying that yes, there is a certain temperature plays a certain part in it. So once climates get hotter, India gets hotter.
30 I think was the number, magic number.
Yeah. And
around that.
After that, while it's still there in the air, the chances of it staying alive longer are much lessened. So the more hotter countries get, the easier it's going to be to sort of survive this problem. So it's more maybe managing the next 10, 15, 20 days well.
Yep, well, the temperatures are rising, but when you talk about balls going out of the stadium, one person who will definitely cause a problem if there's any issue of the ball going into the stands is a gentleman called Hardik Pandya. And if any evidence of what he's done recently in the DY Patil tournament, and gentlemen in the studio saw him from close quarters, it was absolute mayhem. 158 of 50 odd deliveries. He's back, isn't he?
his back and his back is fine.
He's back and he's back.
So I think after a surgery, you always look at these steps of how you're going to make your comeback, and I think he has taken all the steps and has been crossing all the hurdles. With anyone, I think with any injury also, you have to cross those steps. First thing is just getting physically fit. And then the physio gives you a go ahead of whether you are bowling fit or batting fit, in batters' cases. But it's just about crossing those steps, and then comes the match fitness. So before you actually go to the big stage, it's important that you tick that box also nicely, and that's something which Hardik Pandya did in the tournament which he played just a week back. So I think he's ready. It's just about now again. Like how we were talking about Bumrah or anyone who comes back from an injury and comes back to the highest level of cricket, those steps he has to cross. Just about soaking in that pressure, getting used to that flow of the game, and that is something you have to get up to speed with. So that is the only hurdle which is left for Hardik Pandya to cross now. I think otherwise, he's looked fit. He scored a couple of hundreds in that tournament. He's been bowling flat out. So he has done everything, and Indian team will be very happy because someone like Hardik Pandya really changes that balance of the playing 11 as well. So you might see the combination now changing. You might see the two leggies are playing together. So those kind of things may happen now because the options have opened up. And I think the team management will be very excited looking at the previous series for sure, to have someone like Hardik Pandya coming in who will add that power and add those overs as well with the ball, which will give them that flexibility.
Would be interesting to see if he's pushed into bowling a full quota of overs, because yes, he's come back, but he's still maybe not quite got to that 10 over level yet. So maybe they'll just nurture him slightly back, given that you're coming into an ODI format?
I'm wondering, because see, this is a strange Indian side, and look, after the rules also changed, remember, two fielders out and 3 fielders out, change bowlers have become much more difficult. Their life has become much more difficult since that rule change in 2015-16. So my only problem is, in this current Indian composition, you have 4 flat out bowlers. You don't have a 5th bowler. So the problem is, if Hardik Pandya does not bowl, take a look at it. Who takes over? Shikhar Dhawan can't bowl. Prithvi Shaw doesn't normally bowl. KL Rahul will be keeping. Virat doesn't bowl. Manish Pandey doesn't bowl. Shreyas Iyer can turn his arm, but he's not great. So if you look down that lineup, there aren't too many other people who bowl. Your other option is to play Ravindra Jadeja then, and then say that, okay, I can afford to play only one of my spinners. So that is one of my wrist spinners. Because see, that's my big problem. If you have to give Hardik, if you have to take away overs from Hardik, where do they go to other than Ravindra Jadeja? Who else takes it?
Would you give him 10 overs to start with?
Well, I think he's fit. If he's fit and has done all the things which are required for him to be declared fit, I think he is ready to bowl those his full quota of overs for sure. But I think from team management side, you may see that kind of thought process where you just have that cushion just maybe for the first couple of games, just to get the feel of it. Like I told you, the pressures of international cricket is completely different, right? So when you go into that kind of zone, you might feel those nerves. You might feel that tightness in the body as well, which at times the pressure brings to you. So if those kind of situation may arise, you got to be protected against that. So that might be the thought process. You will see 6 bowling options from Indian team, particularly in this game. Exactly. Dharamshala over the years has been bowler's paradise. You've seen a lot of help from the wicket or the conditions. Today's wicket from the pitch report, I can say that maybe is on the dry side a bit. But generally we've seen in Dharamshala that the fast bowlers have had a good outing. So from that point of view, you'll see maybe 3 seamers coming in, and Hardik Pandya will be the 4th option, and the Indian team might go with only one spinner, or they might go in with some kind of option of having that six bowling option just in case Hardik is not going to bowl his full quota of overs.
All that can only be revealed as and when they remove the mask or the covers from the pitch, because at the moment it is covered. There is the threat of a little bit more rain, but we've decided, of course, that all of you, we like to involve everyone on My 11 Circle presents Crickbuzz Live. So we had a little poll out on Twitter, and it did involve Hardik Pandya, and this is the result of that poll in terms of is he being rushed back to international cricket? Now, all of you, 67% of you feel, with 30,000 votes coming in, that yes, he is being rushed back. Now, you'd imagine that fans out there would want him to come back.
I know, this is exactly the reverse. You normally fans say, "Arey yaar, operation to 2 mahine pehle ho gaya, wapas kyun nahi aaya?"
Yeah.
Here it's the reverse. The Indian team is putting him back. They've tested him, sent
Zahid
him.
Khan has given him the okay.
yeah.
Indian team has given him the okay, but it's our fans who are being extra cautious.
I think it's because they've looked at the options. And really, whatever it is, Shivam Dube, Kedar Yadav hadn't worked out for India. And therefore, the loss of Pandya, I think we feel it much stronger. So they're saying this is maybe not that important, a 3-match series. Let him be fit for October. I think everyone was looking, let him be fit for
I think
IPL.
everyone is getting wiser and smarter. So that's what that poll is suggesting to me. You know, they're looking at the big tournament which is happening in October, and the just 3 matches, which is ODI format. You know, everyone is actually talking about the T20 World Cup, which is going to happen in October. And from that point of view, they want to protect Hardik in some way, and that's why they're feeling that, you know, he's been rushed, because after this, IPL possibly will start from 29th of March. So, you know, so there's no rush is what the people's sentiments are with regard to just, you know, bowling 20 overs and playing a 50-over match. You know, it's a different workload. So that's something which they are anticipating. So it's interesting to see how actually public thinks about things.
Yeah,
Maybe also the Crickbuzz public, because remember the Crickbuzz, whatever it is, they are more cricket fanatics. So they feel for their players that, you know, let's save this player till October.
So that's why, and it's all part of the family. I mean, we often call you public, but you're all part of our Crickbuzz family. But one of the reasons why they probably are leaning towards a 67% is because of the amount of cricket that he may have played. So yes, there could be about caution. There could be about also saying that, listen, he's rusty. The last few bits that he's played in that DY Patil T20 Cup was very recently as a week ago. But since 2018 and the Asia Cup injury that he had, you've got first-class cricket that was played, the Ranji Trophy, ODIs against New Zealand, Jan-Feb 2019. So overall, if you have a look at the total number of games, that is sort of been his rehabilitation process, if you like.
Yeah, it is, and I think Isaac will know this much better, that, you know, it's his fast bowling. Bowling is a major part of his rhythm, his back, and what he has. And I mean, does it happen that, you know, one injury and then the second surgery? Is he on the road to rehabilitation? How does it?
But it was the same injury, I suppose, you know, which happened in Asia Cup, and then it happened again in September 2019, and that is something which possibly helped the doctors to take that decision of taking the big call of surgery. And once you've taken that call, then it has to be progressed in certain way. Like I said, you know, you have to first recover from the surgery, then you have to work on your fitness, and then the doctor gives you clearance to do your skill work and announce you fit for that particular phase of your rehab. And once you cross that phase, then comes the workload management as well, in terms of getting your skill levels going. And in Hardik's case, it's batting and bowling. So you got to progress the individual to that, and then after that comes the match fitness. And once the match fitness is achieved, then you are actually good to go, and that is where Hardik is standing at the moment. So, you know, he has ticked all those boxes. Now he has to cross the final hurdle, which is playing the highest level of cricket and dealing with what that brings to you in terms of the pressures of the match, in terms of the workload of the match, and getting into the groove of things. So I think, you know, Hardik is standing at that last hurdle, and this series will help him achieve that, and it's just matter of time, I guess, you know, because when you announce someone fit, he has actually done all the hard yards and got himself ready. So he is match fit. You know, he has ticked that box as well. He's played 3-4 games, which gives everyone enough confidence for him to announce to be ready for to take on the next step. So yeah, I have no doubt about you know, the process being followed, and usually this is the process. So, you know, for viewers, I think it's important that he has done everything possible for him to be ready. The same was the case with Bumrah as well. And we've seen that, it's just matter of time then, it's just matter of getting that match fitness going, having those many days on the field, and things get better and better. That doesn't rule out any possibility of any injury, because if something new happens, you don't really have control over it. But as far as this particular approach is concerned, the approach is nice. The steps, the progression was spot on. It's just about now going out there and playing the game.
Yeah, it's also the personality. If you think of various players, we saw that 67% poll where our Crickbuzz family is being a little cautious. You need to also, the medical staff needs to look at each player individually and say, you don't want someone to be too keen to say that, listen, I'm ready, put me back in there.
Yeah, and see, this is now much more scientific than it was 10, 15 years back. Before, and when Zach must have started, the captain would have said, are you ready? Are you fit to play? And he would just put up his hand. And very often, and especially in the 70s, 80s, half-fit players, because, you felt if you didn't get a chance, you were dropped in one match, you didn't play, somebody else took you up. So all this used to happen. Now it's much more scientific. I mean, they know exactly what's wrong, exactly what his stage of fitness is, exactly what it is. I remember a very funny story about it. In Varun Aaron, there used to be this bowler. And he was in KKR for his couple of seasons.
Are you writing him off already? He used to be?
No. He used to be. He's a very good player. But he used to be in KKR. And I remember Wasim Akram being there, and Andrew was looking after his rehabilitation. He had a bit of a problem with his back and tailbone. And Andrew said, today he's going to bowl just 6 balls. And Wasim said, 6 balls? What do you mean? Then one day he said he'll bowl just 1 ball today. And Wasim used to think, yaar, kya hai yaar, main 18 saal khel liya, nothing happened to me. Of course, people reminded him that the only injuries Wasim used to have is groin injuries, nobody knew why. But the point was that Wasim could not understand how a bowler can bowl just 1 ball or 2 balls or 6 balls and be fit. And that's the thing, it's much more scientific today. So, Hardik would be far more, they would know his body type, his BMI, they would have measured, they would have compared measurements. And, it is, if they're putting him out there, their reputation at stake, which is not just Hardik. It's his physio, it's his trainer, it's the entire Indian medical establishment, sports medical establishment, all of them are monitoring him. So nobody will do this. They'll be the reverse. They'll say, okay, let it take 7 more days, they'll take 7 more days. They're not going to put him out prematurely.
Possibly why, even when there was a thought that maybe he will go to New Zealand and he didn't end up going. Again, we're going to keep updating you. It's still looking very grim in the mountains, beautiful mountains of Dharamshala, with the forecast of thunder showers today. There was lots of rain yesterday, which is why we had a delayed toss, even though the sun was out. But we'll keep you updated with everything that's happening there. But of course, as and when, whether this match or the series gets underway, My 11 Circle gives you the chance to prove your scientific way of sinking your teeth into the game. Download the app. Get your perfect 11 out, and I can tell you Hardik Pandya, now that he's back, is the one you'd always want to go and choose first, with bat, with ball, make him captain, do the works, and then just pick yourself a vice captain. The rest of the squad falls into place. Looking at the opposition, remember when you pick your My 11 Circle team, you can pick a maximum of a certain number of players from one team. So don't forget the opposition. You can't have 11 Indian players in your team, much as you'd like to. The opposition have actually been playing some pretty decent cricket, but we'll focus on an individual also, someone like Faf du Plessis, and remember South Africa coming off a 3-0 victory against Australia and India coming off a 3-0 defeat, which is why it makes it so interesting. But before that, it's not been really good news for South Africa in international cricket post the 2019 World Cup, which of course they started with a defeat to India. Look at all formats of the game, T20I, Tests and ODIs, draw, loss, until that 3-0 against Australia. They had nothing to show since the World Cup. So suddenly for them, we're looking at them with maybe a little bit of renewed respect.
I think also you're looking at, when a coach comes on, a coach, batting coach, what they call a think tank comes on, it takes a little bit of time. Obviously, when we come on to sort of coach, it doesn't happen immediately. So, Graeme Smith, Boucher, Callis being in the system, all these people are really, really great players. And they have the ability to influence. But what they'll do will not happen overnight. So what you're going to see is definitely a much improved South African team over time, because these guys know what good cricket is about. And remember, South Africa in their playing days had a huge winning percentage. They were they might have missed out on a few important tournaments in big matches, but their consistency was unrivaled. So given these guys being in control, I think you're slowly going to see the results of that. Also, you'll see a slightly more settled batting lineup and all. Often South Africa has been accused of, picking up players and discarding them very fast and not, really developing them. And especially for batsmen, that makes a huge difference. I think now with this brains trust, you're going to see better and better results. I think they're in the upward direction.
They used to have the infamous C word, and I can tell you it wasn't corona. That was one thing that affected the South African team. But yeah, mentally, when you have the likes of Jacques Kallis, Mark Boucher and Graham Smith as part of your think tank, as Joy said, it's going to be a vast difference. Quick look at the squad that they have to choose from. And they've got a couple of names there who are in real form. Kyle Verreynne and Janneman Malan have really shown. Malan got his debut against Australia. Lot was expected of him. Heinrich Klaasen, who obviously enjoys playing against India as well. He's found his way through T20 leagues. Now he's a settled member of that side. And the bowling, despite Kagiso Rabada not being there, still looks to have a pretty decent look to it, led by Lumbisani and Ngidi.
Absolutely. I think over the years also, if you look at South African squad, it always used to be that pace battery which used to stand out. And with this bowling attack, you can actually say that there is some good young talent also. Sipamla is also a good young talent who will be playing. Buran Hendricks is someone who's going to provide that experience. He has played enough cricket to understand the Indian conditions as well. Ngidi also has been playing in these conditions. So these factors will matter when you play in India. From the batting unit point of view, it's important to have those chats around what kind of approach one must have in Indian conditions. Luckily for them, they're playing on tracks in this series which are going to be a good tracks. So that will certainly help them. And that's what Quinton de Kock was trying to say in press conference as well. It's about the senior players, the Faf, Miller and Quinton de Kock taking that responsibility as far as batting is concerned, because you've seen in years on year teams coming to India not really understanding what is the pass score or how one must build that innings of 50 overs, and they used to fall short. Even if you scored good runs according to what your expectations are, it may not be enough on these tracks. So that is something which that alteration needs to happen in that build-up of an innings, and that's where the experience of these players in the playing 11 and the support staff who've played enough cricket and done well in Indian conditions, the experience of them will come handy in terms of preparation for the series.
I think that's the point that he was trying to make. He gave Buran Hendricks as an example. It's having played in Indian conditions. When you, for example, the IPL, when you come and play there, you're part of that whole setup. Quinton de Kock very much a part of it. So I think that importance is where the likes of John Smuts and Janneman Malan will not have in terms of that kind of experience in India.
No, absolutely. And exactly what he said, say target setting. What is a good target in Dharamshala? First, you'll say, okay, Dharamshala par scores. Par scores are meaningless because it doesn't tell you whether the ground is good, it's bad, what happened, who were you playing against. You might have been playing against a very weak team. So that going out there and saying, okay, this looks like a 250, 270 wicket, that a de Kock will know, that a Miller might know, that a Faf would know. These are the guys. So they have to tell them, okay, pace yourself according to that. Young man, relax. It will get easier. Just telling the batsman the other end, the ball is going to just relax. It's doing a bit now. It will get easier. You have 50 overs. It's not a 20-over match. Don't need to rush it. All those are things. And see, these guys were masters at it. For a long time, South Africa was a very consistent team because they always had a core of experience. And then they used to put some young players, exciting young players around it. And that's, I think, the formula these guys are saying. That, okay, let's bring back Faf. So now we have 3 old, senior, seasoned internationals. Now we'll put the young talent with them and let them bat and let them get learned. I mean, that's their formula. I think they'll do well with that.
Yep. Add one more name to that list of youngsters is Rassie van der Dussen, also very promising youngster. But yes, they will rely a lot on Quinton de Kock at the top. Whether or not he'll be partnered by Malan or Bavuma at the top, we don't know yet. But Faf du Plessis will have a huge role to play. He was in and out of the side not too long ago. Now he's very much there. What his numbers been like recently in terms of what all he's done? And have a look at August 2019. South Africa Men's Cricketer and ODI Cricketer of the Year award, then rested for that T20I series in India in September, became the first South African captain to suffer an innings defeat since 2010. They were beaten 3-0 by India in that test series in October. Then his test career average drops below 40 for the first time, and that's usually a good benchmark of where you are in test cricket. That dismal test run continues. He steps down in February 2020, and this is sort of a chronological sequence of Faf du Plessis in the last 8 months or so. And then he finally comes back into the ODI squad, was not considered for the Australia and England series. So again, for Faf du Plessis, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, especially if you consider the award he got in August.
Right now, roller coasters all the way down. No, it happens. And particularly, I find it interesting, and I don't know why this is. This is even truer for sometimes, I've seen for South African players for some reason. When they've that plummet in form, and from August, from being player of the year to being what he is in January, February this year, is just, and look, a lot of it is not his fault. I mean, that series against India, they had a really tough time. It was an inexperienced side, there were too many injuries, they were just not good enough. The problem is, you're not just a batsman out there, you're a batsman and a captain, you're going to every press conference, you get wary just trying to, keep the team cheerful, keep the team up. So there's lots of, there's so much on his head. So I think he's benefited from not having that mantle of captaincy. I think he might have turned around and said, look, this is enough. Let me get my batting form back, then we'll think about everything else.
Yeah, I chatted with some people from the South African journalistic fraternity, and initially they were saying, listen, Faf's the kind of guy who will not just relinquish the captaincy after a loss. But after a point in time, I think it was probably good for the whole team that he did that and also got some runs under his belt.
Well, you look at the history of cricket and you'll know that, there are plenty of examples of actually good players taking the pressures of not able to take the pressures of captaincy. They've been made captain, and then they've kind of lost the way how they used to go about their doing their business in terms of their preparation. It can hamper that. There are certain players who flourish with the pressures of captaincy, and certain players actually get bogged down, or the captaincy pressure can weigh you down. I think in Faf's case, it has the later has happened. So captaincy pressure he couldn't really live up to, and now he can actually start afresh. We've always known what kind of player Faf is. The record also shows that. It's just about clearing your mind and starting afresh. When you're just focusing on your game, going about doing your routines of things, and let someone else drive the ship. So that is something which I'm hopeful of, because Faf is a fantastic player. The record shows that, and South African team needs him. They need his experience in that group. To calm the nerves down, to share the pressures of putting up that total together. So I think it will be a good move for South Africa to bring Faf back into the setup and just helping him through this process of starting afresh.
And that's the one thing you never lose. You don't lose the captain. I mean, even if he's relinquished the captaincy, if he's on the field, he's still very much part of the setup to chat with Quinton and the others.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you still have a guy who can think like a captain, but who's not taking the emotional burden of being a captain. So you've got a good strategic brain, and that's happened with India for so many years. I mean, Saurav Ganguly at his peak, he had always had you turn down and tell Sachin, who should I bring on, what should I do? And Sachin was always there for him. That's the thing. Jacques Kallis almost never, I mean, he doesn't want to captain South Africa, but he was such an important player in the field in terms of, we could try this, we could do this, we could change that. And this is what they have. I mean, I think it's good for South African cricket. And who knows, in 1 year's time, form may have changed, something may have changed. I think he's getting on in years, so maybe not coming back to that captaincy. But I think he definitely has at least 3-4 productive years of cricket in him.
Yeah, when young Graham Smith came on, landed in Bangladesh as a captain of South Africa at 22, we were like, really, at 22? But obviously they saw something in him as a future leader, despite others being around him. So maybe Quinton de Kock has something of that leadership quality, or maybe he's just sort of standing in for this slight crisis period, if you could call it that. Let's hear from Quinton de Kock. It's not always easy to get words out of him.
Obviously, Faf's come back. He plays a big role for us from a leadership point of view. I think he is here to help out a lot of the younger guys in our team. He still adds a lot of value for us, and he also knows that he has a lot of value to give in this team. So it's still great to have him around. Obviously, his experience that he's learned over the years will be a big help for this series for us. Like I said, he's probably come in and help out all the youngsters. He obviously was given a chance to have a break. Obviously, it's been a long season. So I think it was important for him just to put his feet up for a little bit, just regather his thoughts. And we're just glad to have him back with us. We're undecided where he's going to bat at the moment, but we'll come up with a decision later.
Yeah, he's a good batsman, safe keeper, but doesn't like the interviews too often.
It's true of a lot of players. More than so many players used to be. It's so difficult to drag them. You're man of the match. No, I don't want to go. I think you're man of the match. You have to be there for the press conference. It happens. Players are like that.
Yeah, but never short of a word, especially on a rainy day. It may not be raining in the studio, but it is raining in Dharamshala. It's always a good time to get a cup of tea and sit with a good cricket quiz. For now, of course, we're going to keep it to a single question because this is the time on the show. We look forward to our joy factor question. And I believe in your own words, you have something interesting to start the series with.
Yeah, it's a nice one. It's really a nice one because it's an interesting fact whether you get the answer or not. Who was the wicketkeeper when the current Indian chief selector Sunil Joshi recorded his best ever bowling performance in limited over internationals?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know Zach knows.
Already
It has,
smiles being exchanged in the
No, I think Sunil Joshi's best performance has some kind of linkage to me as well with my career.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So,
Nairobi.
so that's
Okay,
the head.
leave it at that. Leave it
Okay.
at that, because I can see hashtag CrickBuzz Live, the answers already starting to pour in. But yeah, it's a good way to start with the new chairman of selectors, also recent spin bowling coach of Bangladesh. I had to throw that in since I've just come from there. But because they were talking a lot about him when he got appointed chairman of selectors, almost taking credit for it, by the way. Amrai Qureshi. So, but they tend to do that from time to time. But it's always good to end off with a little bit of a teaser. Unfortunately, the only part we haven't managed to cover today is a toss, the result of the toss, what's happening, only speculation. We can only hope that the rain gods relent and we get some play in Dharamshala. And we'll, of course, keep you updated. Stick on CrickBuzz Live and we'll bring you all of it. Yes, it's almost a sense of deja vu if you go back to that game in September 2019, 15th of September to be exact. There was a washout in Dharamshala. Are we seeing it all over again? Beautiful place, but the weather can play spoil sport at times. Thank you, gentlemen, for the moment. We will be back whenever we have an update for you, but don't worry, we will make sure we keep it coming. Get that joy factor answer in. My 11 Circle presents CrickBuzz Live. We'll see you soon.